All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our our meeting of the minds. We are wrapping up the year and we are talking about this season. So we're, entering the holiday season. We're kind of in the thick of it. But before we get started, let me introduce to you Lori Powell. Thanks for coming, Lori. Uh,
Hi.
Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Well, thanks for having me, Tim. It's always a fun to be on these with each other where we like to help others. I'm Lori Powell with LetLoriHelp. If you haven't heard about our what we do, but we enjoy helping other agents. I've been, a mega agent through the years and love helping agents now, semi-retired and just working to support other agents and loving life.
Excellent. Well, we're happy to have you, obviously. Love talking. My name is Tim Zollner. For those of you who don't know me, I have a little, I guess, group of informational kind of videos and things under the name Tim Can Teach. But I'm also a licensed real estate agent in Colorado and have been for over 10 years now. And like Lori, I enjoy helping other agents and doing what I can to make the world a better place in general. So here we are. But
That's
let's jump
awesome.
into it. So yeah, we're wrapping up the year. We're getting kind of into that potentially, really fun, really, enjoyable time of the year. But we're all also working at this time of the year and trying to balance a lot right now. So what are your thoughts on your, December business and things right off the bat?
Well, and we all know that sometimes December can be very busy and sometimes it's not so busy. Um,
Yes.
my experience is it's usually busy because there's people who need to have closings occur before the end of the year for tax reasons, or they're moving during the break, you know.
Hmm.
So, for me, um, past experience has been there's been days and nights that I've been working over the holidays when I'm spending time with my loved ones that has felt like a big tug.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and I have the same experience. I feel like it's either, I mean, this business is feast or famine a lot of the time, but um, yeah, the holidays, because it's also the end of the year, there is this time stamp, that you're working against the clock to try to wrap everything up before the end of the year. And people have holiday time where they can actually take time off, see homes, and then hopefully, move and get into things before. So yeah, I've had both where it's either been, really slow or just right at the max of intensity.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how you, in past years, I know right now you mainly focus on mentoring agents and that kind of thing and helping people out. But in years past, I mean, how do you manage a family or, your loved ones, your
Mhm.
personal life
Mhm.
and in an excessively busy time of the year, potentially with business.
Well, I came from a time where I actually worked 364 days one year and 363 days the next year, or vice versa. And so, as you can imagine, I had two kids at the time with my husband, and here we are. I can still remember so many things. We're out looking at Christmas lights. Um, a couple nights before Christmas, it's 7 o'clock at night, and I've got clients who are calling me because of something that just fell through, or they're out of money, or they had to pay for their kids or whatever, and they have to go to closing, and they're not going to have the money, and helping them through things. And there's that constant tug of wanting to be there for the clients and yet wanting to be present with your loved ones and treasure those special times. And, honestly, I reached a point where, um, after many years of working nights and days and weekends, doing the volume of business that I did, my kids came in to me in an office, and we had an office on a custom house. We had an office off to the side of the house that was attached. And they came in at like 7:20 at night and said, "Hey, Mom, are you going to come to dinner?" And I said, "Yeah, I got to finish, this contract because we have deadlines tonight, and I've got to reply. We've got a couple things. I think it was an inspection, a resolution that I had to do, and some other amendment or something." And so I knew that the deadlines were those nights, and they said, "Yeah, we always hear that, Mom." And I said, "Well, you got to remember, I'm doing this for you guys. We get to travel the world because of what the business that I'm doing, and I get to come to all of your, soccer games and basketball games and volleyball games. I get to come to all those things. And without this career, I wouldn't be able to do that." "Yeah, but every time we look over, Mom, even though you're at the games, you're always on the phone with the client." And I
Hmm.
about lost it. I just about lost it. And I realized their perspective. At the time, they were just preteen
Hmm.
age kids. And I made a commitment to them that moment. I said, "Okay, I hear you. It won't be happening. I'm going to work hard at being present." I
Yeah.
didn't realize that I was setting such a bad example for them. Here I thought I was setting a good example, good work ethic, right?
Hmm.
But what I was really showing them was that I prioritize my work over my kids. Wrong
Hmm.
message, in my opinion, to send to my kids. And I felt very self-critical at that moment. I can still feel it as if it were yesterday, the feeling that I felt, and this feeling of loss that I had missed out on so much connection and engagement with them because of their perception of how I was with them, you
Hmm.
know. Uh, but I made a change. From that point forward, I quit working weekends. I started delegating, open houses and things like that to new agents to help them out. Um, I started setting all my deadline dates for Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and all the contracts and counters and the amendments and everything, so that I wasn't working on a Friday or a Monday or over the weekend to get to a Monday deadline on these contracts. Um, I started doing things, a lot of template type work, making things faster. I evaluated the
Yes.
most important things, and the things that were menial task wise, I said, do I want to hire someone to do it, or do I want to do it myself faster? And I made the decision to do it myself faster because it was going to take me longer. The way I work and the way I think, it was going to take me longer to train someone. And even once I trained them, I would spend the time to check everything because I'm very like, things have to be right. And so I did. I literally changed in a week's period of time. I since have done actually a training program that people can have access to. It's a 1 week training that's available for people who want to get more balance in their lives. Because from that point forward, I did just as much, if not more, production as a mega agent, and yet worked very, very few weekends or evenings from that point forward.
Hmm.
So people can do it if they
And you
choose to do
made,
it, to have that balance.
yeah, and you made an actual change and you stuck with it, which is amazing. Um, and you mentioned your course on being present and everything, and that's why we're here. We're here because we've all, been in situations where we can feel those emotions. Today, right now, feels the same. And we know what it feels like to miss out on important things because
Yeah.
of the nature of this business. It is kind of 24/7, and a lot of times we can just really be too open in our professional life, and it can just engulf our whole personal life.
Yep.
So
Without realizing it, you know,
yeah.
without realizing it. It takes a
Yeah.
slap in the face, an emotional slap in the face, like I went through, to wake us up sometimes.
Yeah.
And
I mean, how,
I know my objective is to try and get agents to completely avoid that altogether, if
mhm.
possible.
Yeah. And I love the perspective that you come from because you've been through that. Obviously that was hard. And I'm sure it took a lot of bravery for your daughter to even say that. Imagine if she had just stuffed those feelings down for a couple more years and you hadn't had that realization. I mean, thank goodness you were able to change and really get a lot more family time for those remaining years. But I mean, everybody's got all kinds of situations and everybody's got, you know, a lot going on or not so much going on. You never really know. So, what are some things that we can do if you are an agent who is feeling, um, you know, what are some tips maybe from your course that you could tell us today for the agents, me and the agents that are watching this today? How do we get through this? What are some tips you might have to get through this time and feel like you're putting, you know, everything you can into your business. You're not letting things slip and fall, but you're also putting everything that you want personally into your personal life with your loved ones.
Well, Tim, for me, when I think about um, agents who have also talked to me about their situations, very similar, right? There's this constant tugging of
Mhm.
how much do I put into this versus how much do I put into my loved ones. It is a constant balance. It's a constant struggle, but it doesn't have to be stressful. And I think the most important advice that I can give, other than just tips and tricks, the most important advice is not to feel guilty. Don't
Mhm.
feel guilty if for that season you are prioritizing your loved ones first. It doesn't mean that you're abandoning your clients. If it takes an extra 2 hours or a day to respond to your client, so be it. One tip is to let them know in advance. Say, hey,
Yes.
I work really hard. I love you as a client. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to be there for you. However, I love my family too. For me, it's my family. Whoever your loved ones are, right? I
Mhm.
love being present with them. I love spending this quality time with them. Doesn't mean that I'm ignoring you. It just may take me a little bit longer to respond to you. And trust me, I'll be on top of our deadlines. I'll be on top of the contract. I will let you know if there's anything that arises from the other side. I'm not
Mhm.
going to delay that. But if you have to reach out to me, just know that I might not reply right away. It's a great tip
Mhm.
because what you're doing is you're conditioning your client to expect not immediate response, even
Mhm.
though you might be the kind of agent that responds right away. Don't
Yeah.
feel guilty in communicating with your clients ahead of time what your plan is. They're going to
Mhm.
respect you more for that. In fact, if anything, they're
Absolutely.
going to admire you more
Mhm.
because they're going to realize that you know what's right and you know what's good. It doesn't mean that you're abandoning them. If you don't tell them in advance, it can flip flop on you. They can think
Yes.
my agent doesn't care for me. So, communication, right?
Yeah.
I also
You
think
touched on,
hindsight's, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you touched on communication and expectations, which I think is just, it is a streamline through our business right through the middle of everything we do. Expectations, communications. If you set the right expectations of, these are my 2 weeks of my Christmas time, and I have these loved ones, and I've got these loved ones, and you've got your loved ones, and I'm gonna make sure that you get over the finish line, and we close this deal, and you get blah blah blah, whatever. But I'm a person just like you, and this is a time when I'm gonna have a little bit more personal, expectations on me that I want to take part of as well, because I don't want to miss out on my loved ones, my kids, my anybody, my family, my friends. This is such an important time, and this life is short, and we want to make all the money, and we want to do everything we can to service our clients and have everybody be happy. But at the end of the day, most people on their deathbed are not saying, I wish that I would have done more deals on Christmas Eve. you know
Exactly. And you don't tell the client that, but you think that for yourself to justify it in your own mind so that you don't feel guilty about it.
Mhm.
There are many different ways to communicate with your clients too. One way, this is just a tip, one way to do it, if you already know they are going to be celebrating some kind of holiday over the same time that you're celebrating your holidays, right? You can flip-flop it and say, you know what? I know that you probably have some engagements coming up because of the holidays with your loved ones, and I'm not going to be bugging you so much. There's probably going to be less
Mhm.
interaction because I really want to give you your space, right? To prioritize your loved ones. And trust me, I'll let you know if there's anything that's really important that's going to come up. And I'm going to be enjoying time and commitments that I have with my loved ones as well while you are doing yours as well. It's a soft way of letting them know the same information. It's a
Yeah.
communication piece that, I mean, there's so many different ways to communicate with them, right?
Yeah.
Tips and tricks, again, I got to the point where if I was taking in contracts or writing contracts, I would intentionally design the dates around those holidays so that I could commit to my loved ones and allow my clients to commit to their loved ones as well. I built the
Hmm.
dates around it. I would extend the closings another week whenever I wrote contracts. I'd talk about it with the client ahead of time. Let's say I was writing a contract for a buyer. I just flat out asked them, are you going to be busy this week with loved ones' commitments? Oh, yeah, that's a good point. A lot of them would say that. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Okay, well, let's
Yeah.
just avoid that week and go ahead and extend it out 1 week for closing. Does that make sense to you? Oh, yeah, I would really appreciate that, you know. And then when I communicate it with the other agent on the other side, I just flat out tell them they're going to be busy this week. That's why I don't have any deadlines during that week. And they would accept it. Then
Hmm.
they turn around and communicate it to their seller. And guess what? That seller probably had commitments all that week too. So they
Yeah.
didn't want to deal with it either. So what blesses one blesses all if we think that way, you
Yeah.
know?
And I think, I mean, what came up when you were mentioning that is you're being the advisor to your client in a way that we normally aren't even thinking about, because people, when they are going through this, especially on the buy side, when it's so exciting and they've got their offer accepted, or and we're trying to think of how this is going to go down, and for so it's changed and gone back and forth, but historically a lot of the times it's been, yes, just anything, just pick whatever dates, we're just happy that we're under
Yeah.
contract and moving forward. But we have to be the advisor and say, yes, it's really exciting, but let's think about, are these the best dates? Are you going to look back in this and say, remember that Christmas that was horrible because we bought a house and every date ruined all of our Christmas plans? That's not a great memory to have for your client either. So
Right.
that really,
Exactly.
even though we're putting it on them, it really is in their best interest for us to say, hey, that's New Year's Eve. Are you sure you want to have an inspection? Or like, those, whatever. I know actual holidays really don't work because things are kind of closed, but I mean, this time of year is just riddled with
Yeah.
things, and we're all just trying to, have the best kind of, you know, the best situation that we can. But that's what I was thinking. You really are doing them a service by
So, yeah.
thinking through those and saying those things. Yeah.
And letting them choose. I'm a big believer. You let your client choose. A lot of
Hmm.
things are chosen based on how you present it, the options that you give them, and the whys and the wherefores of those options. you
Yeah.
know, leads them to where it makes sense for all involved. I guess that's the
Yeah.
easiest way to say it. But, the other piece I think is for each agent to really evaluate what's important to them.
Yeah.
Um, there's agents, I can think of, a handful of agents that they don't have any loved ones around. They have friends. They've lived a single life for years. They love being around clients and don't care if time is taken off for holidays. That's great too, right? I mean, I know you and
Absolutely.
I were talking about if you do feel overwhelmed, maybe think about the team approach. You might talk through that a little bit, or delegating or sharing. Maybe you talk about that here because that's
Yeah.
very appropriate, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we have talked about the delegation aspect of how to streamline with help. Better than I'm sure anybody watching this, my situation with so much travel over the last few years, I have heavily dependent on my team and other people that are physically in, the places where I've got my clients because I'm not always there. I'm typically not there. So I have really learned how to delegate to people and how to uh, coordinate and orchestrate so that the client feels like I am me, but I'm me and all these different people surrounding them, and all the people that they're interacting with that are connected to me are all supporting and competent and great to work with. But thinking about this time of year, we get wrapped around what we all have in our own lives. I know I've got this Christmas party on the 20th and it's every year and blah blah blah, and I celebrate Christmas and blah, but not everybody's like that. And it's important, I think, to think about everybody else's situation who might be on your team or in your organization. There's plenty of people who are looking for work, either more money, more, just making contacts. And this is a time when people may be vacationing or whatever. Delegate to these people on your team or in your office or whatever, because um, they're available. And there a lot of these, people are they're available, they're hungry and they're open because not everybody is dealing with the the Christmas holiday.
Yeah.
That's just not everyone's situation. So there's a lot of options out there for delegation and coordinating with a team. And depending on how you talk and basically how you communicate with your clients and with your team, it can be seamless and it can be beautiful. With the especially if you have clients who are more technologically savvy, you can do a group chat. You can be doing all sorts of coordination and be completely in the loop without having to leave your PJs on Christmas Day and whatever you want to do. But to get updates and to stay on top of things, but to not be spending that serious time in the car or in front of the computer, just doing a bunch of stuff right now when it's such an important time with loved ones.
Yeah.
What are some ways you've delegated in the past? Because I'm sure you've got all kinds of stories too.
Yeah. Well, I I want to say something about what you were talking about there because I think it's a
Sure.
good point to really remember that just like you said, not everybody celebrates the same holidays. Not everybody is in a situation financially to be able to do anything that they would consider to be fun during the holidays. So if you're using those folks and coordinate and communicate in advance with those folks to help out and compensate them for their time, whatever it is, opening up houses or for an appraiser or an inspector or who knows, depending on your area, what it could be, compensating those people is a blessing to them too. Plus, it gives them something to
Absolutely.
do instead of just being home by themselves during the holidays when everybody else is out having fun, right? So I think you
Mhm.
bring up a really good point there. Um, yeah, for me, I the people that I have delegated to have been in need.
Hmm.
And because of that, um, I've done what I could to do extra training to allow those people to be even more successful in whatever they're covering for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the delegation process was more than just delegating. It was an opportunity to train to allow them to reap more benefits out of whatever activity they were doing for me, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
That's great. Of course.
Because I
So they
want
actually
them
walk
to be
away with a little
successful.
bit more knowledge and stuff
Yeah,
too.
and more knowledge and more results that
Hmm.
are personal to them.
Yeah.
And that always helps them be more successful in some way instead of just helping me, if that makes sense. So I always
Absolutely.
think to that level, I guess. Um, some of the delegation in the past has required a level of experience, I'll say, and
Hmm.
a level of customer service that's similar to my level. And in those cases, I've usually made a deal. I'll cover for you when you go on vacation if you cover for me, yeah, as a backup if I need someone to go out. But again, it's always taking
Hmm.
into consideration their situation and whether they're going to be busy with their own loved ones, at that
Yeah.
particular slice of time, whenever that is. So it's a case by case situation depending on what level of expertise is needed or experience is needed, I guess, and what's needed on that side. Is it more important for them to need compensation, or is it more important for them to have coverage so they can have quality time with their loved ones? So it can be a
Hmm.
trade-off, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had a couple relationships like that have worked really well in the past with some agents, friends.
Yeah.
Now I feel like more just friends,
Yeah.
we're, I'd say, closer to friends than just colleagues, um, but yeah, that has worked so well. And you were mentioning your, working like that, which reminded me, I mean, when I was first, licensed, um, my first couple of years, I mean, I was so young. I had a lot of time. I've always been musical, so I've always had more kind of music related events and things like that around the holidays, which has always been fun. But I remember those first couple of years, I would have loved to have somebody to reach out and say, "Hey, I've got all this work. I don't, what are you doing?" I would have jumped to have some extra, money for presents or whatever. So absolutely reach out. Anybody watching this who's not yet connected with people on your team or
Yeah.
in your sphere, or if you don't have a great team of people who you're working with, there's great teams out there. So if you don't feel like you have a support like that, there are networks of people where you do feel supported and you really can rely on people and get to know them and see how they work. And now I've got a few clients who are very, very, very comfortable with working with me as like a tripod with like two other agents who are doing different things. And it's worked great, but only
Yeah.
because good communication, open, expectations are right in line with, what's going to happen.
Mhm.
And as long as everybody's on the same page and happy, it's great. It works wonderful. But you
So,
mentioned earlier about the guilty
yeah,
aspect.
that's what I was just going to get
Yeah.
to.
And it is easy to feel guilty either way. You can feel guilty about not giving your all to your clients, or vice versa, to your loved ones. So, yeah, let's have a little discussion about that guilt feeling and how do we move past that. And kind of what I, in my thoughts before we talked today, I thought of the way our lives are set up, in seasons. Right now, it's obviously the winter season in North America, so we're cold. But just like the seasons change everywhere, and things change. You don't have normal seasons. You have a rainy season or something like that. But there are times when I think that we need to find a peace inside, that we're going to focus on one thing or focus on the other, and actually just come to a decision about that and let it go. Uh, Something that reminds me, and that I want to get your thoughts on this, but my last thought in that chain of ideas is, it reminds me of when I was younger in school, and I would give myself a really hard time about procrastinating different work. I have a paper, and I would have 3 weeks to write that paper, and I'd wait until the last few days almost every time. And I would get so upset with myself about that. And then I remember kind of right at the end of my schooling, college time frame, I I just kind of came to this. I don't really even remember where it came from, but I think I was listening to something or reading a book about something, but I just got this idea. You need, for me, I realized I need to just decide what I'm going to do and let it go instead of being stressed out about not getting it done or whatever, or, oh, I'm guilty because I haven't done it, or I feel bad because no, I know that I'm going to not do this until 2 days before. So I'm not even going to think about it until 2 days before. I mean, don't necessarily do that. But, you know, I had to come to a decision in my mind about what I wanted to do. And then I needed to move forward and let everything else go.
Mhm.
So, what are your thoughts about that guilty feeling around, the holidays that we could possibly have?
Well, I like what you described. It's a self-talk, isn't it? You're you're
Yeah.
you're you're doing a self-talk, and you're empowering yourself to be and focus on what you want to be and focus on. And I
Mhm.
think it's easier for some than it is for others. An analogy is, I don't know if you've ever woken up with a song going off in your thought. You're a musician, so you probably
Oh yeah.
have. And it continues to go and go and go and go. And no matter what you do, you still keep coming back to it. And some people don't know how to stop that. Well, similarly, I think the level of stress and worry that I've seen some agents have, it's a constant thinking about um, the contracts or the clients or where we are in the process of each of the ones that are under contract, while you're constantly thinking about what you've got to do for the holidays, what you've got to do with the kids, the preparations, and then at the same time putting on the face of, I'm present, right? I'm present with you.
Hey, yeah.
But in your mind, you're not.
Mhm.
That song keeps replaying. And how do you advise people who don't seem to have that control over their mental thought to stop that? Well, for me, I always go back to the same thing. Um, Take a breath and evaluate your why. What is the most important thing in your life? If it were
Mhm.
gone tomorrow, what is the most important thing in your life? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you in real estate? Why are you wanting things to go well in real estate, to be financially stable? Why? 9 times out of 10, it's going to come down to something having to do with a loved one or something having to do with a personal goal that has nothing to do with real estate. It's just a means of getting there.
Mhm.
At least my experience in coaching agents and having them work through their whys. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't have anything to do with serving a client. It has to do with what serving a client brings to them in the way of value. And once we have that perspective, it's easier to be empowered to take control of our thought and let it
Hmm.
go, like you say, and have a sense of peace about it. If, like today, we just got a notification that someone in our neighborhood passed away. She's been fighting cancer for 2.5 years and passed away last night. Well, the loved one that was left behind has been also dealing with this, right? The stress level of keeping that happy face on. Yeah, everything's fine. I'm surviving, yet has been the caretaker through all of this. And you think about the peace that comes from, okay, this is moving on to the next step now, the next chapter, if you will, in this person's life. The gal that was left behind, right? And you think what leads up to that point, what is the most important thing? And that's what I didn't
Hmm.
learn. That's why I had to have that that slap in the face, right? That emotional slap in the face saying, wake up, realize what the most important thing is to you and focus on that. And by all means, if making money is the most important thing to you and doing a zillion deals is the most important thing to you, then so be it. That's who you are.
Hmm.
Most of us are not built that way. Most of us want that money for something that
Yeah.
usually comes back to providing for loved ones or a personal goal that has nothing to do with the real estate, right? Other than it's
Hmm.
just a means to get there. So I don't know how to answer it for everyone because everyone's different, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think realizing what our why is, what the most important thing is to you in this moment, if it were all to go away tomorrow, helps balance that. Okay, I'm not going to get anywhere by worrying about these deals and where they are. Nothing's happening this week anyway.
Yep.
Me worrying about it and stressing about it isn't going to accomplish anything. In fact, it accomplishes the opposite. It teaches
Yeah.
our it teaches our loved ones or our kids that worrying is more important. Worrying about our clients is more important than them. Is that a lesson that
Hmm.
we want to teach them? It teaches
Yeah.
them that work ethic is about working 24/7 and not quality time with loved ones. Is that something we want to be teaching them? So I
Yeah.
think that self-talk for you may be easier than some, may be harder than some. Self-talk's important, but sometimes we have to get down and dirty and almost shocking in our thought to wake us up. If
Yeah.
it's gone tomorrow, what's the most important thing in this moment?
Yeah. And I think, though, absolutely. And I wanted to just add that we are talking kind of an end of the year thing and, this time of year, but this is a conversation that you should be having with yourself periodically because
I agree,
getting
Tim.
back to that why and that reason and thinking, if something in my life disappeared tomorrow, what would be the most important thing, or who is that, or what is that? Because staying as close as you can to what that why is, and staying focused is going to be, the ticket to success, in so many ways. So I think, yeah, we should be doing this like quarterly, but, um, but I think, it's great to kind of to get to, um, a deeper level as we wrap up the year and as we're thinking about next year and what we want our next year to look like, because we want to come in to our next year goals with our big why right at the tip of our
Mhm.
tongues, and yeah, right at the front of our mindset, to try to say, okay, what did I do last year? How do I get closer to making my big why happen, or to, be snuggled up to my big Y every night or whatever. Uh, yeah, I think that that's just so important. So
Balance,
I absolutely
balance. Yeah,
agree.
balance and focus. It's just and guilt, we all know that guilt is self-inflicted, don't we?
Yes,
Some people feel
absolutely.
guilty about things, some people don't. Why?
Hmm.
It's self-inflicted. And my opinion is we should never feel guilty about setting priorities and boundaries
Hmm.
as long as we communicate them.
Yeah,
But that's just
I
my personal
definitely,
opinion.
I agree. And you're right. Everyone's journey is different and everyone's path is different. Um, but at the end of the day, if you find yourself, spinning with the song in your head of stress and guilt and all these negative emotions, um, what I used to do and what I still do sometimes is I'll set a reminder for when I need to worry about that next. And I'll put it on my phone for a time and I'll say, okay, well, um, I don't even know. We were just talking the other day about we have some just housekeeping things with our license and insurance and stuff like that. I didn't want to worry about that in the moment, so I set a reminder, a couple days later on an afternoon that I don't have anything planned, and I said, figure all that stuff out, and I'm not worrying about it until then. So there are some tips and tricks, and
Tips.
I'm
Yeah.
sure you have a lot in your course of literally ways to just physically, like mentally, get beyond that
Yeah.
stress and that stuff, and get back to a homeostasis of happiness and a good, a positive feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
because
that.
just doing it doesn't help.
I do the same thing, actually. I didn't even realize it, but I do the same thing. I put it in my calendar, things that I don't want to worry about right now. I don't want to take the time to even think about it right now. And I put it off to a time when I can concentrate on it. And then I don't think about it until it pops up on my calendar. I like that a lot as a suggestion. Um, some people work out to
Yeah.
gain a sense of peace and to think through things and to get that balance. Um, the playing of the song scenario.
Hmm.
Well, I finally realized all I had to do was play another song that I liked,
Yeah.
and it took away I mean, literally, right? So if you think about that in this application, what is a song that you like to replace this worrying about these contracts? Well, playing a game with your kid or going and making some hot chocolate with your loved one,
Yeah.
whatever it is to replay. It's a physical activity, it's a mental activity, and it's an interactive engagement activity that consumes thought to the point that it replaces the revolving continuous playing of the worrying about the contracts. Does that make sense, or clients? In
Yeah.
other words, you specifically design something that brings a sense of peace and replaces it, pushes it out. Standing
Yeah.
door at the portal of thought is how I think of it. Kicking it out. And everybody has different methods to do that. You're putting it in calendars. Sometimes people work out. Sometimes people meditate. Some people do affirmations. As soon as something hits, they do affirmations that's the opposite so that it kicks it out. Some people do inspirations, right? They have a prayer that they
Hmm.
use, or they do gratitudes. Instead of
Yes.
worrying is fear, right? Gratitude is peace and love. So it counteracts it. I know on my worst days, those are the days that I have the most gratitudes that I'm repeating in my thought because it fills my thought up with good energy instead of worrying negative energy. So everybody has different methods, right? All these are
Yeah.
tips and tricks that you can use, whatever suits each individual,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I think that's the moral of today's conversation is we've got tips, we got tricks, but we really just want everybody watching to just enjoy as much as possible this time, whether it's making all the money you can or whether it's spending every moment you can with your loved ones. We just hope that you just have the best time wrapping up this year. And
Being
we're here to
present.
help. Being present, yes, being in the moment and choosing to decide to be present. And I think that song can take us to another place, you know. So when we replace the song with, you know, what's playing here, what's playing in my living room right now,
Yeah.
how do I get present? It's a huge game changer. But
And not to be funny, but or a pun,
it's
but
okay. You can be funny.
being present is the best present you can give to your loved ones.
Yeah. Nobody wants to talk to the back of your iPhone, you know? So, and we've all been on the other side of that conversation when you're like, you didn't hear a word I said, you know? Why am I wasting my time talking? So
Yeah.
nobody wants to feel like that. And we don't want to make any of our loved ones feel like that ever.
Yeah.
So be present, be mindful of what's going on. And then, you know, if you have to take, if you decide to take time off and you communicate that with your clients, that's amazing.
Mhm.
Enjoy that time, enjoy that
Yeah.
communication, enjoy those good, that every good communication with your client strength is your relationship in the first place. And then you can have your new song be, oh, I can't wait to kill it next year, I can't wait to whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this time is for, I'm gonna pig out, I'm gonna enjoy it all, I want to experience everything. So important.
I love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully this helps other agents go through this holiday time with a sense of peace and fortitude and focus and love for their what
Absolutely.
they really care about.
Yeah, and I think, like, I mean, if you, for anybody watching who can't tell, we obviously very much care about our team and our everybody, everyone's success and emotional, personal, professional happiness. It's all
Yes,
connected. You
it
can't
is.
you can't forget about one thing and expect that everything else to go well. So make sure, yeah, to be thinking about how to be present, how to be mindful, how to do this time of year the best way that you can do it.
Mhm.
But we're
Yeah.
here to help with tips, tricks, and support. So yeah, I'm Tim Zollner. This is Lori Powell. You know, is there anything else, Lori, that you wanted to mention before we wrap up
No.
here and say
Thank
Happy New Year? Almost.
yeah, no. Thanks for the conversation. Hopefully it helps agents out there. And like Tim said, we're available if anybody just needs to talk or needs any help at all.
Absolutely. Great. Well, the next time we see each other will probably be when we're making some goals for next year. So, for anyone who is interested in that kind of conversation, be on the lookout for that, or reach out to us. And we've got a really robust goal setting, you know, plan for, you know, every new year. So, if that's your deal, we also have that for you. But thanks so much for being on this one, Lori. I kind of took control and was in charge of this one when you've been doing the rest of them earlier this
No,
year,
I love
but
it. I love it.
I've enjoyed it. It's been fun. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Okay. You too. Take care.